Good Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for December the 23rd. Today we are reading together in Esther chapter 4. Esther chapter 4. Just a quick scheduling update. I'm shuffling things around a little bit just because some of these chapters here within Esther are pretty short, so it's not going to, I think, be too much of a burden to combine a couple of chapters in our reading. So what we're going to do as of today, what I've figured out is we're going to do chapter 4 today. Then we're going to take tomorrow and Monday off. So we'll take Christmas Eve and Christmas off from our reading. We'll read chapter 5 on Tuesday, chapters 6 and 7 on Wednesday, chapter 8 on Thursday, and then finish up our reading of our daily Bible reading for this year on Friday with chapters 9 and 10, because chapter 10 is like 4 verses, something like that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to, again, take the next couple of days off. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. We'll take those off from our reading. You can use those as catch-up days as you would like. And then we will go 4 straight days, alternating a chapter and a couple chapters, and then we'll finish up our read on Friday, leave you the rest of 2023 as the catch-up days for you if you have any reading you need to catch up on. And then that following Monday is going to be January 1st, and we will start our new read. We'll be going through the Psalms, or the book of the Psalms in 2024, reading through the Psalter. It won't be a 7-day read just because there's not enough material for that. So we'll read, I think, 3 to 4 times a week. And I'm actually going to put together a little booklet that has the reading schedule in there for next year. That way you can have it all in one place. You're not looking for a new schedule every quarter or so. So I'll have that for you by at least the last Sunday there here in December, so that we can have that and use it to your benefits as we read together in 2024, reading again through the Psalter. But for today, let me get the text of Esther chapter 4 up on the screen. Esther chapter 4, excuse me. Just a quick recap of where we've been so far here in Esther. We are told about how Esther came to be in this position as the queen. Ahasuerus, or also known as Xerxes, had a queen. Her name was Vashti. She was not exactly willing to go along with the plans of vanity that Ahasuerus had for her. So she is replaced, or she is sought to be, or he, Ahasuerus, seeks to replace her throughout the bachelor basically process. Esther ends up being the one who is chosen, and then there is a plan that is enacted by a man named Haman, who's more than likely of Canaanite descent, and he has a grudge against Mordecai because Mordecai won't bow down and give deference and honor to Haman. And so Haman overreacts, as we've seen a number of times. There's a lot of overblowing, a lot of overreacting, a lot of just exaggeration within this text so far. And he overreacts by saying, well, if you're not going to give me the respect I deserve, Haman or Mordecai, then I'm going to wipe out your whole family. Not just your whole family. I'm going to wipe out all the Jews that are within the kingdom of the Medes and the Persians. So that's where we come to at the end of chapter 3. Moving into chapter 4, we're going to see Mordecai's reaction to this plan, and that has been concocted by Haman, and then how he is trying to then get Esther to become involved so that she might be able to help this to not be the case. So let's read here in Esther chapter 4, beginning in verse number 1. The text tells us that when Mordecai learned all that had occurred, again, Haman's plan to exterminate the Jews, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, went into the middle of the city, and cried loudly and bitterly. He went only as far as the king's gates, since the law prohibited anyone wearing sackcloth from entering the king's gate. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict had reached. They fasted, wept, and lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. Esther's female servants and her eunuchs came and reported the news to her, and the queen was overcome with fear. She sent clothes for Mordecai to wear so that he could take off his sackcloth, but he did not accept them. He summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who attended her. Esther summoned Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who attended her, and dispatched him to Mordecai to learn what he was doing and why. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square in front of the king's gate. Mordecai told him everything that had happened, as well as the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay the royal treasury for the slaughter of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa ordering their destruction, so that Hathach might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and command her to approach the king, implore his favor, and plead with him personally for her people. Hathach came and repeated Mordecai's response to Esther. Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to tell Mordecai all the royal officials and the people of the royal provinces know that one law applies to every man or woman who approaches the king in the inner courtyard and who has not been summoned: the death penalty, unless the king extends the gold scepter, allowing the person to live. I have not been summoned to appear before the king for the last 30 days. Esther's response was reported to Mordecai. Mordecai told the messenger to reply to Esther, "Don't think that you will escape the fate of all the Jews because you are in the king's palace. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place, but you and your father's family will be destroyed. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." Esther sent this reply to Mordecai. So assemble or go. So Mordecai speaks to Esther through the servant, and then Esther responds to his message with this: "Go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my female servants will also fast in the same way. And after that, I will go to the king, even if it is against the law. If I perish, I perish." So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. And that is the reading of Esther chapter 4. Esther chapter 4. So Mordecai hears about what has taken place. He hears about this plan that Haman has put together and that he has gotten royal approval for. And his response is to tear his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and he goes into the middle of the city. He cried loudly and bitterly. But the text says he went only as far as the king's gate. Remember earlier, whenever we're thinking about Nehemiah in his text, that it was not proper for someone to show sadness in the presence of the king. That seems to be a similar idea that's going on here. You didn't want to show sadness in the king's presence because, I mean, nobody wants a Debbie Downer around, so you don't do that. But that still wasn't going to stop him from showing this very real emotional response that he was having to this plan that Haman has put together. But it wasn't just him that was responding with such strong emotion. It was also the rest of the Jewish people. There was great mourning among the Jewish people in every province where the king's command and edict came. They also fasted, they wept, they lamented, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So this is not just this is not a response that is peculiar to Mordecai, but all of the Jewish people react in the same way. And I almost wonder if this was maybe a part of Haman's plan to see who mourns so greatly, so they might have the ability to identify those who need to be exterminated on that 13th day of Adar. But that's just speculation on my part. Next, we shift the focus to Esther. So we see Mordecai first, his response, all the Jewish people's response. But then we shift to Esther, and her female servants and her eunuchs came and told her the news, and the queen was overcome with fear. So it seems to me, based upon what comes after this, where Mordecai has to explain everything, and where the letter has to be read to Esther and explained, I wonder if her fear is initially just from Mordecai's response, that she is unaware of this letter that has been circulated among the people. The text says that she sent clothes to Mordecai so that he could take off his sackcloth. Maybe that was done so that he could come into the courtyard and that she could converse with him face to face in order to figure out what was going on. But since he would not take the nice clothes, since he would not change his clothes, since he remains in the sackcloth and ashes, Esther ends up sending her servant Hathach to Mordecai in order to converse with him. And Mordecai does speak with him. He explains everything that had happened to him. Maybe Mordecai is explaining here in this moment how or what role he had in playing in this whole thing, and that it was me. I didn't offer deference to Haman. He took great offense to that, and he's not only going to kill me, but he's going to kill everybody. Maybe there's some guilt on Mordecai's part at this time. And he just talks about the vastness of this plan. And hey, he's only going to kill us, but he's going to take money, and he's trying to sweeten this plan to Ahasuerus by saying there's going to be a lot of money that comes along with it as well. So at this point, Mordecai gives a copy of the decree to Hathach so that he can then go and explain it to Esther. Maybe she didn't speak, or probably she didn't speak the language that it was written in, so it had to be explained to her by her servant. And what Mordecai does is he commanded her, not only in talking about this plan, but he says, you need to go to the king. You need to implore his favor. You need to plead with him personally for your people. So Hathach takes this message to Esther, and then it's confusing, or it's not really confusing. It's complicated whenever you don't have these two people talking face to face, and Hathach is just going back and forth, carrying these various messages as the mediator. So then, whenever Esther receives this message from Mordecai, she then sends another message to Mordecai through Hathach and says, "Listen, there's only one law that we all have to follow, and that is you don't approach the king unless you've been summoned. And I have not been summoned for 30 days." So you can imagine, as the queen, I mean, even just for those who are married or any, excuse me, any close knit relationship that you have, if you don't have great communication with the particular person that's in your mind, whether it's your spouse or whether it's a very good friend, if you don't have good communication in those for 30 days, for an entire month, how would you feel that relationship is? You would probably feel like that relationship is not very strong. Therefore, you probably don't feel like you have great influence upon that person in some way. So here is Esther being told, you need to go to the king. You need to implore on the behalf of your people for their salvation. And she's thinking, number one, the law says that you don't approach unless you're summoned. Number two, I don't think I really have that much influence with him because I haven't been summoned in 30 days. There doesn't seem to be that much affection for me. So I don't feel like I can have that much influence upon him. And there's just general fear of, if I go to him and he doesn't accept me, I'm going to die. So then Mordecai hears this message and sends back his old message again. And he says, hey, don't think that you're going to escape the fate of all the Jews, because let's not forget, you're a Jew. Just because you're in the palace doesn't mean that your Jewishness is just erased. You know, if you keep silent, then here's my confidence. This is Mordecai speaking from his perspective. If you keep silent, I feel confident that relief and deliverance will come to the Jewish people from another place. We are God's people. I believe that God will deliver us. Again, he's not speaking of God here, which is one of the interesting aspects of Esther's text, is that God's never mentioned, but you can kind of read between the lines and recognize that this seems to be what Mordecai is saying. So if you don't speak then and deliver us, then it's going to come from somewhere. But you still, you're not going to be safe just by not saying anything. This is a desperate situation. It's time for you to speak. And who knows? This is probably, again, probably the most well-known statement in Esther's story. Who knows? Who knows? Perhaps. Who knows? Perhaps. So Mordecai's not speaking from a place of certainty here. He's just speculating about how things have played out and how it's just so coincidental that there's a Jew in the queen's seat at this time. So who knows? Perhaps you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. Perhaps God has providentially allowed you to reach to this position so that you can come to your people's aid and defense in such a time as this. Again, this is a very desperate time for the Jewish people. And Mordecai here, again, he's not speaking from a place of certainty or absoluteness. He's just saying, isn't it crazy that the people that are under the threat of extinction and extermination, they just happen to have a woman of their own in the queen's seat. Who knows? Who knows? Perhaps this is the way God is going to deliver his people. So then Esther, again, through Hathach, through the mediator, sends this reply: go and assemble all the Jews who can be found in Susa and fast for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, night, or for the 3 days, night or day. And then I and my female servants are going to do the same thing. So this again, fasting is a activity that would be done where you would rely upon God, where your focus would be upon God. You're not focusing on food or drink or whatever else that you're fasting from. It is a time of concentration. It is a time of trust. It is a time of reliance upon God. So do that for me for 3 days. Let's all focus our spiritual energy in this direction. And after that, I will go to the king, even if it's against the law. And you know what? If I die, then I die. I think the way we would put this into our ideas would say, well, we're going to go down swinging. We're going to go down trying. We're going to do everything we can. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It is what it is. So Mordecai went and did everything Esther had commanded him. So everybody knows what part they're playing in this. All the conversation that needs to be had has been had between Mordecai and Esther. Mordecai is putting his trust in God and saying deliverance is going to come from somewhere. You might just be that person. God might have just put you here in this place. And Esther says, all right, well, we're going to have to rely upon him because what I'm doing is stupid. What I'm doing is normally not going to turn out well. But we're going to do it putting our faith and trust in God. If you have any questions or comments about this text here in Esther chapter 4, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And then here in 3 days' time, again, we're not going to read tomorrow on Christmas Eve or on Christmas Day. Those will be catch-up times for you. We'll pick it back up on Tuesday, reading together from Esther chapter 5, which is going to show us how Esther is going to respond at this point. Again, she has been encouraged and implored and admonished by her adopted father in the role she can play in the deliverance of her people. And we're going to see exactly what she does here in chapter 5 on Tuesday. Again, any questions or comments, leave that below. I appreciate you reading along with me on this Saturday. I hope that you have a great rest of your Saturday. I hope that you're preparing yourself for our time spent together tomorrow in our Bible studies at 10 o'clock and our worship assembly at 11. Looking forward to a great day together tomorrow. Again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Take care and God bless.